As the Israeli F-35S fighter jets formally entered the northern border, they apprehended the principal Hamas figure. The most comprehensive intelligence report in recent memory was directed towards the de facto leader of the West Bank and Hamas. In the middle of Lebanon, Hamas came to an end. Israeli soldiers launched an offensive against a large Hamas stronghold in Gaza immediately after the operation that caused significant disruption. I am able to declare today that Hamas has formally entered a collapse phase. Israeli army forces accessed hundreds of tunnels, gathering places, and headquarters at the Hamas location. The terrorist group's coordination has broken, and the ferocity of the fights has escalated beyond anything seen previously. The IDF had identified one of Hamas's two most prominent leaders, the organization officially declared. Let's begin our video and discuss the day's most significant reports, as well as the essential information on the subjects I have prepared for you beforehand. Given the interconnectedness of all the operations, let's begin with Gaza and work our way north. We will proceed to the biggest operation in recent memory in Lebanon, the crossing to foreign nations, following the major operations in the north and south of Gaza. Israeli soldiers have encircled the Khan Yunis area on the southern front. The Hamas soldiers in the Bani Suhaila region are the only things standing in the way of the commencement of the Khan Yunis operation. Thus, at first light in the morning, the IDF-affiliated Javadi Brigade began a significant ground attack at a pivotal location on the southern front. Israeli forces have notably expanded their military presence on the border of the Bani Suhaila region. Since Hamas forces are positioned in the middle of the intended operation and tanks cannot reach the area, it can be stated with certainty that the operation was exclusively carried out with infantry. Due to their small layout, armored cars and tanks may find themselves immediately targeted. During this operation, the Javadi Brigade split into three groups and proceeded to the Bani Suhaila region from three distinct sites. The tanks shifted positions in the first phase. In the last section of the topic, you will have a clearer understanding of why the tanks did not take part in the initial strike. Artillery fire started to reach the target area as the Israeli forces moved in three sizable groups. Exploiting the disarray caused by the large explosions in the area, Israeli forces advanced closer to the objective. Gunfire abruptly hit the big building targeted by the artillery strike after the attacks concluded. Numerous Hamas members are known to be present on the premises. Thus, the primary objective is a skyscraper that serves as Hamas's headquarters. Fire from Israeli forces sparked fierce fighting. However, given how perilous the situation is for the troops, IDFS does not intend to use infantry to take direct control of the building. During the discussion, the participants noted the unexpected arrival of Israeli tanks at the target area. The tanks had moved forward from open spaces and bigger streets at two different locations in the area. Israeli tanks made it to the target location throughout this procedure without having to go through any little streets. The tanks repeatedly struck the headquarters, which housed hundreds of Hamas members, as soon as they arrived. The terrorist organization suffered significant losses, nevertheless. Infantry were able to get inside the building after the initial attacks. Furthermore, Israeli soldiers neutralized Hamas members attempting to escape the region following the initial strike. Although there were minor skirmishes within the building once the infantry arrived, there was no significant fighting. 33 Hamas members gave themselves in. The initial attacks neutralized 61 terrorists and 21 Hamas members who were trying to flee. After fully subduing the area, a thorough study led to the discovery of 6 sizable tunnels within the structure. Despite the ongoing investigation in the area, OCUT's dog units were sent to the location. According to the most recent breaking news, Lebanon is also the subject of our second main topic. The IDF reached Gaza's largest Hamas stronghold. In a foreign nation, Israeli forces delivered Hamas its worst blow in 20 years. However, I would like to provide a quick reminder before moving on to our most significant topic today. I want to underline that we provide you with up-to-date, accurate news analysis and monitoring. Instant by instant. We provide you with the news that we get from our more than 100 local reporters as well as the reports that we get from military public information systems. We should note that we put in more than 15 hours a day at work. Therefore, kindly click the Super Thanks button if you would like to make a donation. We are able to deliver better quality reports and share our news with a wider audience thanks to your support. By leaving comments and liking the video, you may help us out as well. Let's now discuss the most crucial subject of the day. Reports indicated that Israeli F-35 fighter jets were called into action during the ongoing fighting in Gaza. Instead of heading towards the Gaza Strip, the fighter jets this time made their way towards Lebanon in the northern sector. Israeli forces moved closer to the core axis, heightening tension after crossing the border. Regarding the operation, the Israeli Ministry of Defense issued a secrecy statement. A huge explosion occurred not long after at a location along the Central Axis, which had been designated as the strategic headquarters of terrorist organizations. This location served as the primary headquarters for both Hezbollah and Hamas. The leaders of these terrorist organizations gathered in this building. 3 attacks were then carried out in the area, not long after important news broke. Israeli soldiers announced the elimination of one of Hamas's most senior figures, who was also considered the organization's top leader in the West Bank. The fighter jet successfully returned after the mission, delivering what was formally declared as the biggest blow to Hamas in recent memory. 3 Hamas commanders were also neutralized in the attack. This was further disclosed during the ongoing investigations in the area. As I've emphasized in numerous videos, eliminating the commander brings an end to the conflict. Targeting the enormous Hamas fortress in Gaza, the second attack started concurrently with the Israeli fighter aircraft operation, which upset the agenda. The coordinated attack by the 188th Armored Brigade and Golani Infantry resulted in the loss of both Hamas commanders and its most potent location in Gaza. The coordinated attack by the 188th Armored Brigade and Golani Infantry resulted in an abrupt breakthrough strike, breaching Hamas' biggest ammunition stockpile. Israeli soldiers gained the upper hand in gunfire as hostilities broke out in the area, establishing a safe perimeter. Upon entering the Hamas stronghold in El Burej, Golani soldiers confiscated hundreds of guns, explosives, and ammo. Golani forces also confiscated a significant quantity of rockets. I think Hamas has entered a serious slide after this procedure. Within the terrorist group that lost its most senior commanders, there have been mass surrenders. Disoriented organization members have also stopped communicating and are attempting unsuccessful attacks. Terrorist groups with impaired coordination are quickly eliminated through methodical operations. Members of Hamas who have cut off communication either discover about the operations later than expected, or are not receiving any information from the area. Moreover, strategic attacks have ceased as a result of the neutralization of leaders. This might have been the war's most pivotal day. This coming week is going to be crucial. We'll keep giving you timely and accurate updates on what happens over the next few hours. We are still giving you an unbiased account of what happened. To make it simpler to follow new videos, you may help us by leaving likes on the videos. Additionally, you can subscribe to the channel. The Israeli military reported early on Wednesday that it had launched over 250 airstrikes into Gaza during the preceding 24 hours. At Khan Yunis, the IDF launched an unexpected attack against the Hamas power center. The attack caught hundreds of people off guard, resulting in the neutralization of many within the first 12 hours. But how did the IDF pull this off in the intricate urban settings that Hamas uses? The raid also exposed troubling facts about Hamas tactics, which include the organization's use of civilian spaces, including kindergarten schools, as weaponry and operational hideouts. In this video, we will examine the intricacies of the IDF's mission, thwarting Hamas strategies, the IDF offensive in Khan Yunis, and the crux of the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Khan Yunis, a location with great strategic importance and tension. Recently, the Israeli Defense Forces carried out a crucial and unanticipated operation that targeted the center of Hamas's influence in this region. The objective of this mission was to destroy Hamas's base and limit their capacity to use it against Israeli soldiers and civilians. The 98th Division and the Commando Brigade spearheaded the IDF's offensive, which was a calculated attempt to sabotage Hamas methods. It was a valiant attack on their lines of defense, with the goal of neutralizing and destroying their complex underground tunnel systems. These tunnels were a strategic asset for Hamas, enabling them to employ evasive and cunning battle tactics, combined with constructed bunkers and combat trenches. The way that Hamas has been maneuvering has been especially worrying. They have frequently preyed on civilian populations, operating in places like schools and refugee camps and utilizing them as human shields. This strategy not only puts innocent lives in jeopardy but also makes it more difficult for IDFs to safeguard civilians while taking down Hamas's army infrastructure. The IDFs has taken a multi-pronged approach to handling this difficult problem. The operations prioritize civilian safety despite their complexity, placing special emphasis on efforts to remove civilians from battle zones and deliver vital help. The IDF concentrates on locating weapons stockpiles, demolishing terror tunnels, and going after important Hamas leadership people all at the same time. The fighting details provide insight into the IDF Special Forces' high-stakes operations. These soldiers launch focused attacks that neutralize a number of strategically important targets, such as drone command centers and terror infrastructure, making it difficult for Hamas to plan ahead. The IDF discovered that money intended for non-military purposes was misappropriated, which was a concerning finding from these operations. The IDF discovered a financial record that revealed Hamas had diverted more than $1 million meant for civilian needs to the construction of terror tunnels beneath cities. This information raises concerns about Hamas priorities and their exploitation of civilian resources for their cause, as it stands in stark contrast to the money's purported purpose. Beyond the current struggle, the IDF's battle in Khan Yunis is significant. It aims to neutralize regional threats coordinated and supported by organizations such as Iran, while also destroying Hamas's immediate power base. Despite the difficulties and obstacles they continue to face, IDFS is steadfast in its will to fight and eliminate Hamas's menace to Israeli security. The story as a whole emphasizes how serious the situation is in Khan Yunis, highlighting the moral conundrums encountered in fighting an organization that is ready to use civilian populations as a means of achieving its goals. The IDF's unwavering commitment to safeguarding people and impeding Hamas's capabilities throughout the conflict highlights the continuous struggle for security and stability in this volatile area. Tactical tactics used by Hamas, a terrorist group active in the Gaza Strip, have a big influence on the dynamics of the area. Their strategies frequently conflate the roles of combatants and civilians, which exacerbates the ongoing conflict and raises ethical questions. A vast subterranean network is the foundation of Hamas's strategy. These consist of strategically placed bunkers and fighting trenches spread out across the Gaza Strip. The underground building provides Hamas with vital resources by providing cover, security, and a favorable vantage position from which to operate. Hamas hopes to strengthen its resistance to Israeli army attacks by hiding its men, weapons, and leadership behind this subterranean network. The intentional use of civilians as human shields is one of Hamas's most divisive strategies. This immoral tactic entails putting civilians in danger in order to dissuade the enemy or obstruct army operations. Hamas operates in locations designated for civilian use, purposefully blending in with the local populace. Hamas's operations take place in schools, camps for refugees, and densely populated districts, thereby confounding the reaction of opposing forces. There is a serious ethical conundrum with the use of civilian shields. By mixing in with civilian populations, Hamas not only puts innocent people in peril but also makes it harder for enemies to tell combatants from civilians or navigate dangerous terrain. This strategy presents a serious obstacle for the Israel Defense Forces because each army operation carries the possibility of civilian casualties, which Hamas uses as a media tool to incite international indignation and condemnation. The IDF faces additional challenges as a result of Hamas's policy of operating inside civilian neighborhoods. Targeted strikes against Hamas's army infrastructure need careful consideration of the necessity to reduce civilian losses while successfully diminishing the organization's threat. These strategies have significant implications. By utilizing a vast subterranean network and people as shields, Hamas aims to establish a convoluted battlefield that obfuscates the distinctions between fighters and non-fighters. This not only goes against the rules of combat, but it also poses serious moral and practical difficulties for Hamas's enemies as well as the international community. In addition to endangering civilian lives, using people as shields violates international humanitarian rules, which place a premium on protecting non-combatants during armed conflict. It also hinders humanitarian efforts and makes it more difficult for the armed forces to respond to Hamas. The use of civilians as shields and subterranean infrastructure in Hamas's tactical methods creates a dangerous and ethically difficult battlefield. This method not only increases the dangers to bystanders caught in the crossfire, but it also poses a serious obstacle to enemy forces attempting to maneuver through the area. Because the lines separating fighters and non-combatants are purposefully blurred, the IDF's response to Hamas is beset with difficulties. Notwithstanding these challenges, protecting civilians while taking down Hamas agents continues to be our top priority. One of the most important aspects of IDF operations is the discovery of weapon stockpiles that Hamas has deliberately concealed within civilian neighborhoods. The IDF's efforts to find and neutralize these weapons were intended to reduce any possible harm, as these caches constitute a direct threat to both the Israeli military and civilians. The IDF also prioritizes demolishing the terror tunnels that Hamas has built. The Hamas militants utilize these tunnels as covert routes to enter and exit Israeli territory. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, seek to hinder Hamas's capacity to conduct offensive operations and safeguard Israeli citizens from impending danger by focusing on and destroying these underground networks. The deliberate targeting of Hamas leadership is a crucial component of the IDF's reaction. The IDF wants to weaken Hamas's leadership structure and make it more difficult for them to organize and carry out their plans by identifying important individuals inside the group. The purpose of these targeted actions is to lessen the efficacy and influence of Hamas officials in guiding hostile acts. The setting in which the IDF response strategy functions is difficult because Hamas operates purposefully in places inhabited by civilians. Hamas's strategy makes the IDF's job more difficult because they have to balance taking on hostile groups while causing the least amount of damage to innocent bystanders. The IDFS is resolute in its mission to defend civilians while opposing Hamas, in spite of these obstacles. They demonstrate their commitment to guaranteeing the safety and security of Israeli residents through a varied strategy that includes finding weapons, demolishing tunnels, and exercising leadership. In the midst of the ongoing Hamas, the IDF has used special forces to deliberately raid and eliminate Hamas, taking precise and targeted actions against the group. These specialized operations aim to interfere with and destroy essential elements of Hamas's infrastructure. Targeted raids carried out by special troops have effectively neutralized hundreds of Hamas allies. These efforts have significantly reduced the immediate threat posed by Hamas operatives. Through targeted engagement and elimination, the IDF hopes to weaken Hamas's operational capacity and stop them from entering Israeli territory. The IDF has carried out accurate research on crucial components of Hamas infrastructure. The IDF primarily targets important Hamas operatives, such as leaders and those responsible for giving orders and planning hostile acts against Israel. The IDF has also targeted drone command centers, which are essential to Hamas's offensive operations and reconnaissance. These activities are part of a larger plan to undermine Hamas's operational capabilities and organizational structure. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, seek to seriously hinder Hamas's capacity to organize, plan, and carry out operations within Israeli territory by demolishing vital infrastructure and taking out important operators. The IDF's targeting of Hamas personnel and facilities is a deliberate and well-thought-out tactic. The goal of these operations is to maximize the impact on Hamas operational capabilities while minimizing collateral damage. The accuracy of these demonstrates IDFS's dedication to reducing dangers to civilian populations while countering threats posed by Hamas. The IDF's approach to fighting Hamas's aggressiveness must include specialized operations such as raids and strikes on vital Hamas facilities and operatives. The purpose of these measures is to impede Hamas's operations and protect Israeli citizens from the group's continuous threats. No, this isn't it. Learning how Hamas embezzles money intended for civilian needs will horrify him. To remain up to date with the IDFS initiatives and the startling reality concerning the misappropriation of Hamas funds, make sure you click the subscribe button. In the face of Hamas, the IDF prioritizes the safety of civilians. The IDF continuously strives to reduce the danger to civilians and protect non-combatants who become ensnared in combat. One of the IDF's main goals is to evacuate civilians from places where evacuation orders are in effect, protect innocent lives, and relocate them away from regions where army actions are taking place. The IDF aims to safeguard people from harm caused by the ongoing fighting by relocating them to safer regions. The IDF is actively working to help people impacted by it. This assistance includes basic necessities including food, water, and medical care. Ensuring civilians affected by the have access to these essentials is critical to meeting their fundamental needs during this difficult time. The methodical division of Hamas army operations into civilian areas is a crucial component of the IDF's efforts. By drawing a distinct line between areas inhabited by civilians and those used by Hamas for military objectives, the IDF hopes to prevent civilians from unintentionally becoming caught in the crossfire. The IDF uses a number of tactics to establish and preserve these divisions. Every day, safe zones are established, and precautions are taken to keep residents safe from danger because of their proximity to Hamas army operations. The IDFS demonstrates its dedication to reducing threats to non-combatants by focusing on civilian protection and implementing purposeful measures to keep civilian areas far from Hamas operations. These actions demonstrate IDFS's commitment to protecting humanitarian principles and reducing the number of civilian casualties. The IDFS's continued efforts with Hamas center on removing civilians from high-risk regions, giving impacted populations critical aid, and maintaining a distinct demarcation between areas used for Hamas activities and civilian zones. Hamas, a group recognized by Israel, the US, the EU, Canada, and other nations, has been shown to embezzle large sums of money meant for civilian needs in the Gaza Strip, despite the IDF's prioritization of non-combatant safety and well-being. During its operations, the IDF discovered a financial report that revealed the misappropriation of more than $1 million intended to meet Gaza's fundamental needs. Rather than applying this cash to improve the lives of civilians, Hamas used it to build terror tunnels beneath cities. This troubling misappropriation of resources by the organization is evidenced by the divergence of funds meant for infrastructure development for hostile goals instead of for civilian necessities. This financial mishandling highlights a serious problem where money meant for social welfare is being diverted towards projects that endanger civilian lives and regional stability. Hamas's actions and the rerouting of funding for the creation of terror infrastructure demonstrate a lack of concern for the security and well-being of the very people they claim to serve. In addition to taking vital resources away from providing for Gaza's basic necessities, this financial mismanagement adds to the region's ongoing cycle of violence and insecurity. It highlights the organization's warped focus on aggression rather than the well-being of the people it professes to serve, exemplifying a worrying disregard for the welfare and betterment of civilians. This financial report's IDFS discovery reveals how Hamas uses monies intended for civilian benefit to promote its terrorist goals. These revelations, the difficulties presented by the group's procedures and the difficulties in providing for the humanitarian requirements of the impacted population in the Gaza Strip, have significant strategic implications for Hamas. The IDF is still engaged in fighting with Khan Yunis. The main goal of these operations is to weaken Hamas, which has a stronghold in the leadership, and to prevent them from launching attacks against Israeli soldiers and civilians. In the Gaza Strip, Khan Yunis provides Hamas with a vital base and stronghold. The attention that IDFS is paying to this region suggests a calculated attempt to undermine Hamas's ability to operate and maintain control over this important region. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, intend to destroy Khan Yunis in order to limit Hamas's capacity to launch offensive attacks against Israel by damaging its infrastructure and command center installations. The goal of this strategic maneuver is to undermine the operational capabilities and leadership of Hamas, which are based in Khan Yunis. Here, Hamas agents and leaders wield considerable influence, leading and coordinating attacks against Israel from within the civilian populace. By undermining the leadership structure, the IDFS operation hopes to lessen Hamas's capacity to plan and carry out hostile actions against Israeli military and civilian targets. The goal of the IDFS operations in the Khan units is to protect Israeli citizens from the frequent rockets fired from Gaza. Because Hamas is tenacious, attempts at infiltration directly endanger the lives and communities of civilians in southern Israel. By reducing the likelihood of another attack, the IDF hopes to make the atmosphere safer for Israelis by focusing on Hamas capabilities in Khan Yunis. From a strategic standpoint, the IDF's combat operations in Khan Yunis are an attempt to decisively reduce the army force and influence of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. These actions send a clear deterrent message to Hamas and other enemies, demonstrating IDFS's commitment to defending Israeli sovereignty and defending its citizens. Please share your opinions with us in the comments section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you watching in the interim. Thank you for viewing. Then, Israeli intelligence has formally obtained the most significant Hamas documents. When it comes to technological treasures and intelligence collection, the Israeli Military Intelligence Directorate, or Aman, is in charge of looking through anything thought to be connected to Hamas during combat operations. According to intelligence units, they have taken over 65 million digital data and over 500,000 paper records from operating units thus far. The Central Israeli Operational Units directly transfer confiscated evidence to intelligence units. Thus, intelligence teams can analyze and synthesize data using their evidence. According to recent reports, 252nd Division forces searched a Hamas commander's home in Beit Hanun. After the raid, operation troops recovered a map of the organization's tunnels in the residence. The operational center received the map from the operative unit. Due to the finding of other Hamas fighters hiding at Beit Hanun, operation teams are searching there. After the operation forces took over the core of Beit Hanun, the Hamas brigade withdrew south. Airstrikes are occurring as operation units target terrorists entering a tunnel within a building. In raids after taking over the compound, the operative unit found a militant's residence. The operatives located another map on this property and gave it to the intelligence agencies. The intelligence departments found an 8-room tunnel south of Beit Hanun after studying the information. Intelligence units sent the operations team to find the tunnel after finding it. The intelligence teams obtained another paper revealing Hamas's main explosive storage facility. The army transferred operational staff underground after uncovering the bomb depot. The army eliminated the threat after finding the depot. By gathering Hamas intelligence, Amshat managed the ground operation. Authorities claim control east of Jabalia. Israeli troops are pushing big attack units into the northern Gaza Strip's final Hamas brigade. As described in the last video, the 3 operational units started east of Jabalia. Urban terrain is where parachute units from the north of the complex are stationed. The Israeli Army's most experienced counterterrorism unit, THEART 13, transferred from the east due to excessive housing density. The assault units surrounded 2 Hamas battalions. The southern region is larger than the northern, and assault units found a Hamas battalion. Israel's 228th Brigade split the Jabalia complex. After discovering insurgents in the massive tunnels, the 228th Brigade destroyed them. After the tunnels were destroyed, the assault unit mopped up to the south. Due to 2 Hamas battalions in heavily populated regions, the 888 unit moved close to THEART 13. Special operations launched urban operations northeast of the site in thickly populated areas. As the THEART 13 battalion began operations from the east, insurgents in structures fired on the army. After identifying the terrorists' hideouts, planes bombed heavily. Attack units in the densely populated area began a large terrorist killing operation after the airstrike. The Israeli military reportedly occupies this land. Tunnels have forced operations personnel to explore extensively. These strikes confirmed the last Hamas brigade in northern Gaza. Actions increased in Gaza City's northern Tufa neighborhood. UAVs found Hamas's final northern brigade. Aircraft directly bombarded the house. After the bombardment, warplanes killed many terrorists. The remaining Hamas unit is fighting in Gaza City's north, and operations troops are spreading. Recent sources say Sheikh Radwan hides American and Ukrainian mercenaries who aid the Israeli army. The Israeli army has not verified it, but the Sheikh Radwan facility appears to house local volunteer organizations. The northern Gazan Sheikh Radwan compound, where Hamas may hide its most lethal weapon, is being searched by the Israeli military, volunteer organizations, and warehouses. Teams are still disarming terrorist traps and removing tunnels after collapsing over 30. In conclusion, the Israeli army spokeswoman claimed the 98th Division is fighting alone. Inside tunnels, the 98th Division moved. The Israeli army claims Hamas developed enormous tunnels in Gaza's second-largest city, Khan Yunis. Terrorists escape using tunnels. After discovering that the Hamas command center, armament depots, and weapon production facilities in Khan Yunis are in the tunnels, Israeli forces went below. At Beray, the Israeli 646th Paratrooper Brigade defeated Hamas's central Gaza Strip resistance. The 646th Paratrooper Brigade of Israel broke Hamas's intricate defenses. Before circumnavigating Salah Haldin Road, the unit arrived. The complex houses the Hamas Burj Battalion. Thus, the Israeli army has expanded in the region. 99th Reserve Division approaches the corridor. The middle of Gaza should see more operations. We need donations to keep giving information.